Hello, I'm Trista Sears. This video will cover cognitive theory of multimedia learning, or CTML, and cognitive-affective-social theory of digital environments, or CASTLE. We will discuss each of these theories and their implications for instructional design. CTML and CASTLE are both multimedia learning theories that apply to digital learning environments. This means that these theories incorporate both pictures and words into online instruction in meaningful ways. Both of these theories grew out of cognitive load theory, discussed in an earlier video, so you will see a lot of familiar concepts and assumptions. Let's look deeper at each of these theories. The cognitive theory of multimedia learning, or CTML, asserts that when pictures and words are combined in meaningful ways, learning is increased. CTML relabels the load conditions first introduced by cognitive load theory and expands on these concepts. Cognitive load theory introduced intrinsic, extraneous, and germane cognitive load. CTML rebranded these concepts to be essential, extraneous, and generative processing. CTML assumes several things about the learning process. It assumes that we process information using dual channels, visual and auditory. It assumes that we have a limited capacity for processing information in those two channels, and that all individuals are active learners in the learning process. In the CTML learning process, you can see several familiar memory structures reappearing: the sensory, working, and long-term memories. In CTML, learners must select, organize, and integrate information. They receive instruction through a multimedia presentation. The information is processed in the sensory memory by both the ears and the eyes. As the learner is taking in the information, they are selecting what is important. This information will then be sent to the working memory, where it is organized and connections are made between the new material and prior knowledge in the long-term memory. As these connections are formed and solidified, they are integrated into the long-term memory for future retrieval. Instructional designers should work to reduce extraneous processing, manage essential processing, and foster generative processing. Extraneous processing can be reduced by using signaling or highlighting key material. Essential processing can be managed by breaking larger concepts down into smaller chunks through the use of segmenting. Generative processing can be fostered through the incorporation of learning activities or by using conversational language. The Cognitive-Affective-Social Theory of Learning in Digital Environments, or CASTLE, builds social cues and processes into learning. It adds the assumption of the social mediation hypothesis that states that social cues in the learning environment activate social schemas that impact the learning process. The CASTLE learning process is nearly identical to CTML. But in CASTLE, we see multiple inputs from the multimedia presentation, and we see multiple channels in the sensory memory that cover our other senses. The learning process unfolds the same way as CTML, but with the influences of social cues and schemes, motivations, and emotions on the selection, organization, integration, and retrieval of information. As instructional designers, CASTLE encourages us to create dynamic, interactive multimedia environments that include rich social cues. We should attempt to include facets of social comparison through feedback or imitation. We should also attempt to elicit emotional connections and engage with our learners. And we should use human-like qualities in our pictures and narration through the use of polite conversational tones and by using gesturing. Early in the video, we talked about similarities. Now let's look at the key differences between CTML and CASTLE. CASTLE takes into consideration the impact of social cues, motivation, and emotions on the learning process, whereas CTML is more of a cognitive process model, examining the aspects of the lesson and learning environment that impact the cognitive and learning processes. CTML and CASTLE are multimedia theories of learning that help to lay the best practices for instructional design. This video provided you with a brief overview of CTML and CASTLE, their effects and implications for instructional design. If you would like to explore any of these topics further, I would encourage you to look at some of the references that I used in creating this video. Thank you for watching.